Welcome back to the Making a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast, where we have real conversations about what it takes to run a successful business. Thank you for joining us as we share our day-to-day successes and, even more importantly, failures and mistakes. Listen in as we host some of our peers, colleagues, and other experts in the field. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. All right, welcome back to the Making of a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast. I'm Kat Toronto, and I'm here with the Mr. Rick Dunn, AesthetiCare's manager, and just the best leader ever. So I just am so excited to have you today. Thank you for doing this with me. And I know that all the things that you do are so helpful and will really make an impact with the people listening. So thank you for doing this.
Anytime.
All right. So let's get started with a little bit about your background. You know, kind of where were you before AesthetiCare? And then we'll jump into the AesthetiCare piece.
Okay. Well, I spent all of my life in retail before I came here. Worked for a major retailer and had a lot of different positions and worked my way up through management and took away from that all the things that what not to do as a manager, having worked with under a lot of different people for 30 years, and emulate what I admired in the managers that I really wanted to aspire to be like. So that's kind of what got me. That was my training, and that's where I'm at.
What kept you there for 30 years?
You know, I'm really loyal. Bottom line is I loved what I did. Mm-hmm. I can do it in my sleep. Sometimes I felt guilty for getting paid. It was that natural for me, that much fun. The people definitely kept me there. Great relationships. But there was a loyalty I had because they saw things in me that I didn't see in myself, and always gave me so many opportunities and allowed me to just grow and come into who I am today. So that came with a huge degree of loyalty.
Well, we're going to keep you for another 30 years.
All right. If I make it that long.
All right. So I think, there's so much to that. You know, I think that a lot of our listeners have come from either the ER or primary care or OBGYN, you know, they're coming from all these different specialties.
Yes.
And in a practice that is insurance-based and focused now into what we call retail, well, what Matt and I call retail medicine.
Yes.
But, you know, a completely different environment.
Completely.
And so I think what you offer in your background and what you bring into an aesthetic clinic like AesthetiCare is just, it's just so valuable. And so what do you think are some of the things that you have found to really make an impact at AesthetiCare that come from the retail background?
Most of my time in retail, it was management, but it was also visual merchandising, which is responsible for all the consistency standards, having all the stores look alike and then within the store from department to department. So that training, you know, my eye being trained to catch all those things, I brought, I think, consistency to AesthetiCare, elevated the standards by just, you know, having a customer walks into one room, they walk into the next room and they can tell it's still AesthetiCare. Mm-hmm. And then as we grow, the other practices will be the same way. Mm-hmm. I think retail, restaurant service, bar service, if you're a server and a good server in a restaurant or a bar, or if you worked in hospitality, I think that's if you're good at that, you can learn aesthetics and you will be good at this because you understand how to treat a client. I think that's one of the biggest things I look for when I'm interviewing, and I think that's probably what's made me be able to be good here.
Which is interesting because as a healthcare provider, you know, as nurses and nurse practitioners, I mean, they may not even think to put like, oh, I was a server as I was, in high school or college, or, because most of what their resume looks like is more on the education side
Right.
and their background in medicine. But yet, one piece of what I'm hearing from you is that you're looking for is like some sort of experience in hospitality is also
Yes.
hugely helpful. Not like, oh, I've been to laser training or injectable training, but I know how to interact with people.
I know we can train them how to be a laser technician
Yeah.
if they have their license and certification. So, but I can't teach them how to treat a customer well.
Yeah.
And it is much different here than in an insurance-based practice because, it's very clinical. It's very almost cold at times, and it's just about treating the condition, the symptom, and getting them healthy. And you don't have to have a great bedside manner, but here you do.
Yeah, well, I have a unique opportunity to also not only get to ask you like what you feel like is important from retail, but I've gotten to watch you bring some of those things in. Some of the things that come to mind for me that you have made changes here, like the Atkins calendar, like looking at our yearly calendar, kind of explain what that is, why we switched to that.
So if you, if you're looking at any kind of a bonus and you're trying to really measure whether you're beating last year, if you go by the 12-month calendar, your weekend shift, sometimes the number of days that you're open is shifts. But if you go by the retail calendar, it's a 4-5-4 calendar, and anyone in retail follows that. So you have the same number of days every July that you had the previous year and the year before that, and you're going to have next year. You have the same number of weekends because it goes from Saturday or from a Sunday to a Saturday, depending upon whether it's a 4 or a 5 week month. So it's just consistent and you can measure it better.
Yeah, we've really loved that. It's made a big difference
Yes.
in how we look at numbers and set goals and manage those goals and give the rewards.
And it's a true measurement because it's the same number of days. You have the same number of Mondays and the same number of Saturdays that you're open. And those days fluctuate based on people's schedules. So it is much more fair and accurate.
Well, I look at also looking at the schedule and thinking about some of the things that we've gone through as you've been with us now for 8 years.
I know.
8 years,
That's
can you believe
scary.
it? Is the looking at just scheduling, because we've more than doubled in size, both in revenue and people.
Yes.
And so, we've had instances where all of a sudden we had, multiple providers that were wanting to take vacation at the same time. And, how do you manage that part of it?
Well, again, I don't have favorites. I try to think of a way to be the most fair and logical. So those who have the most seniority, I ask them to give their request first, and they would take priority. If they choose not to, and somebody with less seniority requests the day off or the week off, and nobody else has, then they're going to get it. But I try to go by seniority first, and it's worked out, strangely enough, but as we continue to grow and as you do get bigger, and even for a smaller practice, if you only have 3 front desk people, you can't have 2 of them gone at the same time.
Right. I was going to say, how are you managing that piece? Like, how many people can be out on vacation in each role?
So, in retail, too, you have a minimum number of people that you will open with. And so whatever the size of practice, you just establish what that number is. Typically, I don't like to have 2 RNs gone at the same time because of the amount of money that they generate. So to have 2 gone in a given week, that'll be a hit for that week. I mean, it's going to be hard not to make it. So if you are numbers driven and you're really looking at always having an increase or trying to, you have to look at those things because you don't get those days back.
Right. Well, it's interesting, too. I think of some of our biggest months every year, and March is one of them. And March is also spring break. I mean, March is a month where a lot of our team members are probably asking for days or weeks off. And yet every March, we're still really busy at AesthetiCare.
It is, strangely. But again, sometimes I ask people, it's like, can you switch that to a different long weekend? I already have 2 people gone. So they understand. They get it. Yeah.
Well, what about, looking, kind of talking back to the point of, working with team members that don't come from retail background. Maybe they had a little experience, serving in a restaurant when they were younger or being the hostess or something like that. But, I feel like a lot of healthcare professionals just overall don't have any type of business or retail sales type of training. And I think, what are some of the things that you talk to them about, when they're doing consultations, when they're putting together packages, in terms of like thoughts to keep in mind that you would think about when you were, selling at the department store, based on, looking at your client and deciding how much they can afford, or, what are some tips that you would give with that?
I really try to get people to, in that situation, I remind people, it's like, how would you feel if this happened? Or how would you feel if this happened? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you receive this a lot better? So I really just start working with them on getting them to think how they would feel, mm-hmm. Whether it be how they speak, or if they're doing a consultation, and their recommendations for a treatment plan. Definitely don't shop out of your own pocket. Mm-hmm. You don't know how much or how little money. Mm-hmm. So you want to make a recommendation based completely ignoring any finances, based on what the client is asking to have treated or what their concerns are. You come up with a plan that would best suit them, mm-hmm. that would get the best results. And then from that, if that's more, you can break it down. And it's like, well, microneedling with RF is better, but we could step back to microneedling, or just tailor it to their budget. Mm-hmm. But don't assume that they don't have the money to do it. They're here at a med spa, and prices aren't a secret. So I figure most people in today's world will do, look at reviews. They're going to do their homework before they walk in the door.
There's so much information they are exposed to, and so many of our clients also come in by referral.
Yes.
So their friend probably also mentioned the price.
Right.
I mean, I've also spent a number of years in retail and department stores early on in my career, and I'll never forget one of my managers would tell me, like, no is just another way to get to yes. Like, don't be afraid of the no.
No.
It's going to come. Look at it as like an expectation of like, yeah, they're going to, they're going to say no, but that doesn't mean like a hard no. Right. There's just something else they're looking for, another question that they have. Maybe it's a different price point, but mm-hmm. don't be afraid to give them the right program that is going to get them the best result, the result that mm-hmm. they're looking for, because you've shopped their pocket. You think, they're not going to be able to afford this $5,000 program or $10,000 program or even $500 program. I love that. Don't shop the pocket, because mm-hmm. you don't know what it is. And let's put together the best procedure package for them, and then let them decide. Yep. And if they say no, that's okay. That's okay. We can find something else for them, or maybe we get the yes the next time, and maybe they say yes in a week or a month or 6 months when they've had their birthday or Christmas money or something like that come in.
I mean, they could have the money themselves. They could have just won the lottery. They could, they could have parents that are able to help them and say, what, I want you to go. I know this bothers you. This is going to bother you for life. You go figure out what you need to do and let me know. I'll help you with it. You don't know this scenario. Mm-hmm. Nobody does. So just always full correction if you're looking at injections or fillers. Full correction is the best. If you undertreat, they're going to still feel like they've spent X number of dollars and not got results.
Right.
Which it doesn't matter if they could afford it or not. They're underwhelmed.
Right.
And then they're disappointed. So full correction and addressing it with all your guns loaded mm-hmm. is the best approach, I think.
Definitely. I completely agree. Okay, so I want to go back to something else you mentioned earlier about bringing from retail, and that is the consistency from room to room, space to space. Now we're opening up our third location, clinic to clinic. Mm-hmm. And, for years, we have taught at Mint that, you don't want to overspend when you're opening a new clinic. Right. You can find nice things, and you don't have to buy them at the most expensive places. Now, you and I are more on the same page than Matt Toronto. Like Matt, Matt, I think to his credit, before you and I even arrived, had already
Right.
built, like, he has built such an amazing business,
Yes.
right? And so he's always been very focused on, let's spend on our team, let's spend on equipment,
Training.
let's spend on training. We don't need to spend so much on the lighting and the couches and
Right.
things like that. And so when you first came to AesthetiCare, we were at our previous building, and we had brought furniture, we had brought things from 4 moves before,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And had those 4 buildings before had gone into the rooms, and
Hey listeners, it's Karen, the marketing director of AesthetiCare Med Spa here, and I wanted to share an incredible resource that has changed the marketing game for our virtual events here at AesthetiCare. Our events partner will provide all of the items that you need to put on a professional, organized virtual event with ease. You provide the assets, pictures of your staff, or whatever treatment that you're trying to promote only takes 90 minutes or so, and they do everything else. Following the event, they'll even provide you with detailed data analytics so you can see exactly how many people attended, who stayed for the entire event, track who's interested in getting your treatment or special that you're promoting. You will even have automated follow-up texts. I'm telling you, it will make your virtual events easy breezy, and they do all of the marketing. It's incredible. For more information or to see a case study or two from AesthetiCare Med Spa, check out the link in the notes below.
So there was very little consistency.
Very little consistency.
And so I think that, one of the things that I have loved to see is you grow the consistency. But, when we were there, it's not like you went out and spent all this money
No.
and redid every room and every space. You found ways to do that. So maybe kind of think of where your mindset was then, and then we'll talk about now, because now we're, in a big, beautiful new space. But then what were you thinking about, and how did you attack it there?
So I started with small things. Posters were on the walls and not framed. That was just like, oh. So one of the first things I did was I standardized the rooms. I got frames that all the posters went in that were, weren't expensive, went to Hobby Lobby, when they were 50% off, and I bought what I needed. Little things like that along the way. Some previous manager at the end of the hall had put a curtain up to hide the dirty laundry. It's just like, that's got to be a door. The little things that we ignore, that we pretend are okay, take the whole level down. As long as you're clean, not cluttered, have a nice, smooth feel to your practice, those little things, address them and spend the money, because it makes the difference on the overall feeling. It's like that one corner in your house that you don't want to deal with and everything else is wonderful. Well, everybody's sitting there staring at that corner. It's like, what's up with that corner? Everything else is great, but there's still that corner. So I really looked at those small things to try to standardize. It didn't cost very much. And then just went from there. And I like to go to consignment stores, and I would say I have a decent eye to pick things out that would replace something that was probably in bad shape or really outdated. And I just kind of started with that there and never really spent very much money, but
Yeah, you did an amazing job.
over the time, it changed the feel of it.
Right. And then eventually we redid countertops
Yes.
and some things there. But some of the things that I would notice that you did there and continue to do, and we haven't had to do so much here, although you have actually, but is you would go around with your paint can, and any little mark on the wall, it just did not stay. And I think, I look at my own house right now and I'm thinking, I should repaint the entire main floor. We've had soccer balls and we've been on go-karts and bikes in the house for the last few years. And so it just needs a repaint. But you would walk around and brush things up. And it wasn't like you had to do the whole wall all the time, but it was like just little touch-ups. Because, I think too, as clients, when they lay down on the bed, they see what's around on the floor. And then, if they're face down and if they're face up, they're seeing the ceiling. There's just a view that they are seeing that we either get used to walking by that little black mark on the wall and we kind of start to ignore it, like the corner in your house, or, we just don't get the viewpoint of like laying on the bed. And so, here, even recently, in our new space, I laid on the bed and I was like, oh man, like we had done some little touch-ups and there was dust around one of the mayo stands or something like that. And I thought, oh, I didn't even catch that,
Right.
So it's like taking the time as an owner to stop and look for those things.
Yep.
And if you don't have the skill or the time to do it yourself, it's like find somebody that does.
Yep.
It makes such a big impact.
It was easy for me because over the years I had to train my eye to catch everything wrong. That was my job. So it's almost sad in a way, because my eye doesn't just go to what's wonderful and marvel in it like most people do. My eye is constantly scanning for anything that's incorrect or out of place or that doesn't fit. But that's what made me good at what I did. But it was training. I had to train my eye to do that.
Yeah. Well,
A burned out light bulb, ceiling tile with a stain on it, all those things. When I walk, I'm just kind of like looking in circles to see anything that's not right.
Well, you think about, what an impact that can make, because no matter if if you have a brand new, beautiful space, there's still some of those things that happen.
Yep.
The little fixes that we've had to do as we've moved in, or big fixes,
Yeah.
But if you've been there for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, there's even more.
And if you let those if you don't like address it like quarterly, almost put it on your calendar. I do. It's just like, okay, I'm going to go. In retail, we would say we're going to walk the floor, and you would take a notepad and you would just walk and just look for everything wrong. You would make a list and then you would delegate it, or the next day, by Friday, I want to knock out my list and fix everything, those little things that keep it from being perfect.
Yeah.
And you just keep up with it regularly, and then it never gets bad. It never starts to look shabby. It always feels fresh.
I love it. Yeah. We are an aesthetic business.
Yeah,
so
we are. People
important.
pay attention to that.
Yeah. Okay, so now we've moved into our big, beautiful new space, and you have played the biggest role in building out this building, and Matt and I cannot thank you enough for that, because your attention to detail and how much care and love you put into every inch of this place is, I just want you to know I see that, and I recognize it every single day. I really appreciate it. So it took us some time to get here. And so looking back over planning for the move, and actually maybe we can either start with the move or the build out of the building, and we're not going to go into a lot of details today, but what you found to be important with those two big pieces of our business over the last 2 years, really. What did you find to be the most important? What did you find to be, what were some of the mistakes we made that we could have avoided? Anything like that you want to share?
Some of the hardest thing is just the timing of the move and the building being ready and then being on schedule, because we are scheduled so far out, to know when to block that and schedule the movers and have everyone there to like pack everything up. That took constant reevaluation and constant contact. By the end, I was at the new building here almost every day, sometimes more than once a day. Arrived really early to walk with the foreman, to ask questions, to like look to see what they did the day before, to see if we're still on track. What are we waiting on for orders that could potentially delay. So that was definitely probably the end, the most stressful. In the beginning, it was really just coming up with allowing for growth what do we have now? Doing a spreadsheet with the number of injection rooms, with the number of aesthetic rooms, the number of laser rooms. I have found with the architects and the rough drawings and somebody who doesn't know the business, they miss a lot of the non-revenue producing rooms that are very important, that the stuff has to go somewhere. Storage, clean and dirty laundry, your IT closet. Who's responsible for that? Because that's not part of the build out. So you have a third party that's going to do your music, your phone system, all those types of things. Your security, they don't do that. So if you have cameras and stuff, you need to have them involved at the right time, do an introduction with the foreman so they're all communicating with one another, and a lot of follow-up for timings so they get in here right when they need to do it as fast as possible, because then it saves you a lot of money in the end because they're not having to fish wires and stuff. So that's a lot of coordination that I think some people don't think about, but I think a lot of it is what I feel that has made the efficiency of this space better is that I strategically place the clean and dirty laundry, the dispense room, the break room, all in relation to everyone going by that and save steps, because when you're booked and you have a lot of people that are depending on the person before you being on time and finished up in the room so I can get in there with my client, that efficiency really matters. And the other building, because we kept growing and expanding, we would just make spaces work for us. And we did a good job. But definitely, I think everybody sees the difference of when you can design it and have those things right where they should be. You know, at the end of the hall as you're walking by, you throw the dirty clothes in and keep going.
Right.
It makes a big difference.
Makes a huge difference. And even the time you took to go through the blueprints and make sure every outlet was where we needed it. You know, outlets on the floor for electrical, you know, where does the plumbing go? Where is it going to be both like the best place in the room, but also the most cost effective? And, you know, and so there were so many details that you looked at and then continued to look at throughout the build. I remember looking at your blueprints and the things that you had marked up, you know, week after week or month after month, and say like, oh, they missed this. And you had walked through and caught it. And I think, you know, Matt and I wouldn't have done that. We would have gotten in and trusted them to find all those things and do all those things. And there were a million red little marks on the blueprints. And so you did such an amazing job at that. And I think, you know, we went from, like you mentioned, you know, at our previous building, we ended up with about like 12,000 square feet.
11 or 12, yeah.
Yeah, we started at like 5 or 6 and then grew to that there. And then now we're at 20. Right. And so it needed to be, it's not like we're trying to not get the steps in during the day. We're going to get the steps in because it's 20,000 square feet.
Yep.
But so, you know, that has made a big impact and will for years to come, you know, as we continue to grow in this space.
And the configuration of the millwork in the rooms. I talked to multiple injectors and asked them very specific questions. I tried to get the drawers and the under-counter refrigerator and the sink and the trash can, everything's built in so it makes the rooms look very streamlined and clean. But what order? What do you use the most? And I would go in and watch them doing their procedures and watch what they did with their hands and what they reached for to come up with the flow. And same way with the estheticians. Their rooms are configured completely different because of where the bed sits. We moved from the cabinets being on the sidewall to behind them so they can just spin on their chair. Things like that. And so I definitely talked to other providers that had worked at other locations and asked them, like, what do you like here? What did you like better and why? So I did a lot of questioning everybody to come up with what I thought was the perfect, setup.
Right. I mean, I remember too, you sent it out to the team, and I, for me too, reading those, and, obviously I'm using the technology and things too, but it's a completely different perspective, which is so great to have, because I might choose to do it one way and someone else has like such a better idea. And so it's nice. It was great to get the feedback to say, oh, wait, no, that does make sense. Let's do it that way. Yeah. And so I feel like we got a lot of that as well.
Yeah.
So what about the lobby? Building out the lobby, coming from a retail background, and also now having worked at AesthetiCare, at that point, 6 or 7 years when we're starting all of this, what was your thought process with building out the lobby?
Ours was tight and an odd configuration. We do host, a lot of events, not a lot, but we do. And that didn't lend itself to that. So I definitely wanted the lobby to be able to be more universal and the ability to host bigger events and stuff and not feel crowded. I wanted check-in and check-out to be separated. So if one person's trying to do everything, they're maybe not the most efficient at everything, but if they zero in, they can become really good at that. Meaning they're good at everything, but if all I'm doing is invoices today, I'm not worrying about all these other things. Oh, do I need to get the consents ready for tomorrow? Do I need to do this? They're zeroed in on client care and doing invoicing. So, and then it also helps with just, the privacy and conversations, and when you have 5 or 6 people at the front desk, it's nice to have them separated a little bit so those conversations, everyone's not overhearing.
Right. At Mint Aesthetics, we believe in learning from the best. That's why our e-course training programs are designed and taught by industry-leading experts and providers. Our faculty consists of experienced practitioners, renowned professionals, and top-notch instructors who will guide you every step of the way. Our e-course training program offers a comprehensive curriculum that covers all aspects of aesthetic procedures. From advanced injection techniques to skincare protocols, our courses are meticulously crafted to equip you with the knowledge and skills needed to excel in this competitive field. Want to know more? Visit us online at mintaesthetics.com. So just if you visualize our space, you can either come up the stairs or off the elevator. The elevator opens right into our lobby. To the right is our check-in, and to the left is our check-out. And there's a big space in between with a beautiful retail piece in the center. And then all of our retail is actually down the hallway where our providers bring our clients past the retail to the checkout area so they can grab products and talk about them as needed, or pass them off to Lydia, who is our retail expert, to go through the products with them.
And the retail placement was very intentional, and that's where it has to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, for us, we also are a training facility. We're here at Mint. And so one of the things that I've loved as well is in our old space, we had the retail check-in, check-out area of AesthetiCare up at the front of the space, but our Mint training consulting space was at the far back. And so when we would do events, it would have been nice to have them closer together so we could utilize and open the doors like we're able to now. And so, as aesthetic centers, not everybody's going to have 20,000 square feet to start with. I mean, we opened Liberty with 1,500, our second location. And so, having a retail area that can be used for events, as can be opened up, and it has is really important, I think. And so we redesigned that with this space to where now we have both right next to each other. So now we have a big open retail, and then we can open doors to the training room, which is another big huge space that we can utilize as well.
So that's what I did in the beginning, as I set down all those things that you just mentioned, and that was one of them. Mint being at the opposite end, it was always a challenge at any event. And people just didn't, they didn't get a sense of what all we were about. They missed a big portion of who we are, because Mint is, it's part of AesthetiCare. It's 2 separate businesses, but it's all one. When you think about it, we're all one family. And I think if I were a client coming in and I knew that they were a training center and the person doing the procedure on me is actually a trainer for other facilities, that would speak volumes to me. And I think that is a missed opportunity that I always felt that I didn't know how to fix or address. So having Mint there, but the biggest thing was I just made a list in the beginning of all the things that were non-negotiable to me, that on this floor plan, these have to be in place, or we're just shooting ourselves in the foot. And the training room and the lobby being adjacent was one of those things to me that I never would have we're keep redoing it.
Yeah, right. And it's worked out great.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, I love it. So,
And it's the whole layout here is just, I don't think it could be better, honestly.
I keep telling Matt I feel like I'm in a really nice hotel and I'm gonna have to go home. So like, it just still. I mean, I not so much now, but especially for the first few weeks.
Oh yeah.
It's like, where are we?
I know
the furniture's all new and matches with all the decor, and it's just been so great.
And one of the really small things that they tried to get me to on the budget was to change was the base on the walls, the baseboard.
Oh,
they
really?
wanted to use plastic cove molding, and I said no, it's just a hard no.
Yeah.
To me, you can spend so much money on everything, and then you look down and you see plastic at the bottom of the wall, and it's just like,
Why?
You just ruined it. And one of the first vendors that I did a tour of, commented on it.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. Well, it does make such a difference.
Yeah,
it's the lighting.
It's those little things that complete the package.
Definitely.
Don't spend $500,000 on some sculpture and then cut corners to where there's other places that just look cheesy.
Yeah, I agree.
Make it all look great.
Beautiful. You all listen out there will have to come visit us at Mint and AesthetiCare to see our beautiful new space.
Yes.
So before we finish up today, is there anything that you want to share? Any learning moments, anything that has been a surprise coming from retail to medical aesthetics, or any tips for managers out there? Anything that you've thought about that we haven't talked about today?
I think you asked me once what was the biggest thing, in a small group you get really close to people, and I was close to my staff in retail, but it was a lot bigger, and with just fewer staff members and as intimate as this is, you get really close and you become friends. As a manager, that is sometimes the hardest line to walk, especially if somebody messes up and you have to let them go.
Yeah, that's just the worst.
It is,
yeah. But the best for the team, which is what I always remind myself.
I tell myself, you know what, we all wear a lot of hats in the day, and I can be a good son, a good employee, a good brother, but right now I'm a boss. And as close as we are, this is the right thing to do for the business. And you have to be able to put that hat on without beating yourself up.
Well, I appreciate you for that, because for me, that's always, rips me apart. Like most people, it's so hard to do that. And, both you and Matt also is always reminding me that, we are not just, it's not just one that it's like affects the entire team. And if you have one person that is, the bad apple, to put it, as simply as possible, but it hurts everybody. And so if we don't do it quickly, then we continue to hurt everybody. And, as hard as it is to have those conversations, it makes the biggest impact for everyone else.
Good people want to surround themselves with good people. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And if they're positive and all the qualities that you should be looking for when you hire someone, those people stay positive because they don't surround themselves with negativity or people that are downers or that complain all the time. Be part of the solution. And so if that starts to happen, you've just got to think about everyone else and your decision, how that's going to impact them.
I love it. We'll end with that.
Yep.
All right. Well, so thank you so much for being here with me today. And if you want more of Mr. Rick Dunn, go to the AesthetiCare 411 lessons, where he meets with Matt and Karen, our marketing director, every month and goes through all of the fine little details that drive AesthetiCare. So check out that course and the Mint e-courses if you're one of our subscribers. If you're not, subscribe. It's an amazing program. You're going to love it. So thanks for checking in with us today. We'll chat with you soon. Thanks for listening to today's episode. We would love it if you left a review to help other providers and clinics find us. Also, if you want more information about anything we discussed in this episode, check out our show notes. Until next time, this has been the Making a Multi-Million Dollar Med Spa podcast.